Hi, my name is John Gold, and I am the Michigan President and Senior Ambassador for Giffords Gun Owners for Safety. Um, I am here today to testify, to give this testimony because I've been a pistol instructor for over 25 years. I'm a former lifetime member of the NRA. I'm a survivor of gun violence myself, and I've taken live fire. I've lost 4 people to firearms suicide in the last 6 years. And I've taught responsible gun ownership and gun safety for my entire career. But we've gotten out of whack. This country is missing something. First, I want to thank 2 heroes. I want to thank Gabby Giffords and David Chipman for inspiring me to take on this cause. Slaughter is too easy in this country, and it needs to stop. I understand that I have Second Amendment rights, but I know that supporting practical gun safety measures is not mutually exclusive from the Second Amendment. In fact, they're necessary, they're prudent, and they're urgent. I'm not your usual gun safety advocate, but I should be. I've taught marksmanship and pistol craft for over 2 decades. I've been shot myself. I've lost those 4 people in 6 years. I have scars to remind me. But scars, gun violence leaves more than just physical scar tissue. It leaves you with more than just physical damage. It leaves you with holes in your heart that tear at your soul. I used to ask when I'd speak for moments of silence for the victims of all of these incredibly brutal, horrific shootings, none of which the Second Amendment should guarantee or provide. But I can't ask that anymore. I can't ask for moments of silence because we've been silent long enough. And if you have any question at all why our voices need to be heard, this hasn't been since just Columbine, and I'm not diminishing Columbine, or by Sandy Hook, or by Pulse, or by Las Vegas, but by the deaths that have permeated and terrorized our American life since the 1970s when semi-automatic weapons started coming home from Vietnam. Since gang violence permeated our streets and rural violence, it's not a locational thing. It's not a group of people. Gun violence is everywhere, and now it seems to be okay to intimidate and promote fear in Americans everywhere with the open carry of firearms in public, which we got rid of in the Old West. There's a reason the Old West is old. It's past. It's gone. We need it to disappear, not reappear. Silence is what got us to a threat level where Buffalo shoppers are hunted in their grocery stores and Uvalde children are slaughtered in their schools. I'm a gun owner and I'm angry. I'm angry that our government is once again offering prayers while there's mass slaughter in our streets and our stores and our schools. I'm angry that the leading cause of death for children aged 0 to 19 is gunfire. I'm angry that irresponsible gun owners let 4 children die in 5 weeks in the state of Michigan this year because they didn't secure their weapons properly. I'm angry that last year, while I was on vacation visiting my best friend in Indianapolis, I was on the phone with Giffords dealing with a mass shooting on the ground yet again because we can't escape it. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. My anger has been a steady rise up to a vicious boil, and sometimes I say it's days like these it boils over. But the truth is that it's boiling over all the time. Every minute, every second. I always seem to be angry now. And Congress, I'd like you to be angry with me. I'd like you to be so angry and so offended and so sad that you actually take action and provide a safer environment for our children, our elderly, for our everyone. Gunfire doesn't discriminate. It just keeps happening because we don't certify people. We don't license people. We now give out gun permits at will. At will. So if you haven't committed a felony and you don't have a mental health record that's visible, in states in this country, we now have permitless carry that don't even require training requirements. And someone can walk into a store, buy a gun, load it, stick it in his belt, or hers, I shouldn't be sexist, and go do whatever they want to do without us knowing the who or the why or the what or the when. But we certainly know the how. We've seen so much how that we can't even. I used to be able to recite the names of all of the mass shootings from Columbine forward until Pulse. And now I realize not only can't I do that, but I need a database. I need a computer to show me all of those names that were stuffed inside that Time magazine cover last week. I can't remember all of their names anymore because there are too many to count. I told you I've lost 4 people in 6 years to firearm suicides, and I'm going to tell you their stories soon. But what I want to tell you first is I really wish they hadn't had access to the most efficient killing machine available. I wish we'd had a way to remove those guns without committing a crime. That's right, it would have been grand larceny to take the guns out of their houses as civilians. Larceny to save a life. You know what? It would have been worth it. I wish we had national red flag laws, ERPO laws, emergency risk protection orders, so that with due process, the police and a judge, having seen evidence and testimony, could remove firearms from the home of somebody who is mentally ill or disturbed. If I'd had that law, the first woman I ever told that I loved her would be alive today. Because I could have made that call and I could have seen that judge. And I think I would have convinced him. But we didn't. And we don't. And she's gone. I wish that we lived in a society that valued caring over social Darwinism and hope over fear. And I really hope, Congress, when you see this, that you're done wishing too. There's a lot of people in this country standing up for change. You saw us in Washington 2 weeks ago, and you're not going to stop seeing us. We're not done. We're going to keep coming until we fix this. We have to fix this because we've let this generation of children down. We let these laws lapse. We let PLACA get passed so that gun companies have absolutely no liability towards the marketing or the use of their products. The only company in the world, the only kind of company ever who's gotten that kind of liability protection. But I suppose you can't sue for liability on a product that does what it's supposed to do. Guns are killing tools. Anyone who tells you anything else is probably selling another gun. We need to turn our anger into action, Congressman. Please, I need you to be angry. I promise you, if you don't, you're going to see me so much, you're going to see me in your sleep. I'm not going to live in fear anymore, and neither should you. You need to stop being afraid of the radical fringe. You need to stop being afraid of the NRA. And you need to start being more afraid of what might happen to your children one day on the street, or one day in school, or one day having lunch outside with you. Kindergartners were massacred at Sandy Hook, and that wasn't enough. And innocent people just trying to have a good time at the Pulse nightclub were slaughtered, and that wasn't enough. And one night 3 years ago, I was sitting in Washington, D.C., trying to celebrate victories. There were two more mass slaughters, one in Dayton, Ohio, and one in El Paso, Texas, on the same night. And that wasn't enough. But now we had two mass slaughters on one night that night 3 years ago, and nothing got done. I'm a gun owner. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I'm angry because you're doing nothing to safeguard the people of this country, and that's the job you got elected to do. It's in your oath. And I hope that oath actually means something to you. Because if it doesn't, we're in for a world of hurt. This is just going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Not if you don't grow a spine, stand up, and do something about it. So those were prepared remarks. And now I'm going to tell you stories. I'm going to tell you about my college girlfriend, who was a beautiful, incredible, bursting piece of light. And I loved her very much. We didn't work out. That happens in life. And she went on, she got married, she moved out west. She was also bipolar. And one night, out of the blue, with very little warning, her husband served her divorce papers. And she called me, crying, bursting in tears, not wanting to be a burden to anyone anymore. That's what she said. She didn't want to be a burden. And I said, "You're not a burden." And I thought I talked her down. And then I had the long conversation with my wife, telling her that I was about to fly to go get my ex-girlfriend, who's the first person I ever told I loved. And that was a hell of a conversation, to which my hell of a wife said, "Go get her, we'll figure it out." I got in the car and I drove to the airport. Well, I was driving to the airport. when my phone rang. It was two detectives from out west who told me that I was the last person on her cell phone, and they were calling to inquire as to what I might have talked to her about. And I told them. I told them that I had been worried about her, that I'd called in a check, a wellness check to the county sheriff's department. They said that they knew about that. And that's why they were calling, because it was evident at this point that she had committed suicide. I don't like that phrase. I don't like committed suicide. It makes them sound like they're guilty. She was the victim of a firearm suicide because she didn't have help or hope. And the detectives and I, after we finished talking, told me that my bipolar friend who'd been served those divorce papers had been left in a house with a loaded gun and an unlocked case. Now, she was a pretty bright woman. She could have figured out any number of ways. But the truth is, with suicides, we usually get them back. In fact, 92% of the time, we get them back. Pills, knives, cars, jumps. We usually get them back. But when you take a firearm and insert it into that situation, that firearm is 89% effective. I wish she'd had better odds. I wish she hadn't had the most efficient killing machine available. I'm a gun owner, and I'm angry because slaughter is too easy in this country, and it needs to stop. Another friend of mine, martial arts training partner, high-level corporate executive, who suffered from depression and chronic pain. Well, turns out as a corporate leader, he may have been a little bit of a fuss budget, and people didn't like him. He lost a job for the first time in his life. His body was screaming in chronic pain from years of physical activity, defending himself and others. And apparently he walked into his house, walked upstairs, took the pistol out of his safe, pressed it up against his head, and pulled the trigger. I say apparently only because I didn't see the body, not because I don't know that it happened. He's gone too. And then the last story I'm gonna tell. Good friend of mine, one of my best friends in the world's father was a military veteran, 25 years in the service. He'd lost his wife 6 months before, and he'd fallen a couple of months before this and broken his neck. Now they got him to the hospital, and he healed. And he was part of his family again until he fell again. He fell a second time, and he decided he couldn't go through that anymore. So he retrieved his Service 45, was the victim of a firearm suicide, and his daughter, my closest of friends, had to find him on his kitchen floor. So not only did we have the trauma of the loss of life, but we tend to forget the trauma of the innocents who were left behind. And maybe if we'd had a red flag law or an ERPO law, or it just wasn't illegal for someone to go make sure somebody's gun was safely secured, maybe he'd still be alive and telling stories to grandchildren today. But he's not. He's gone. So that's why I want to talk to you about more legislation, not less. I want to talk to you about safe storage because in the compromise that's been proposed that the Senate and the House are now looking at, there isn't one word of it. There isn't one word that says if you own a firearm and you have children in your house, or you have a compromised individual who's not allowed to own a firearm, or someone with great mental illness, that you are liable for the security of your weapon. Now, I don't understand why this is so hard, because this is what the NRA taught us in the 80s about safe storage, about locking your guns up, about having it separate from the ammunition and having a gun lock on your weapon. That was part of the test. And here we are in 2022, and they won't compromise on a law that would just make sure that children are kept safe when they're playing in somebody's house, or that an elderly person with dementia isn't going to wander across a gun and use it the wrong way. I don't understand. This is what they taught us. And it's beyond my comprehension that now all they want to do is sell guns. That's what the NRA has become. The leadership, anyway. Not the membership, but definitely the leadership. They're a bunch of gun pimps. That's what they are. They get their commission checks every year. I hope they sleep at night. Let's talk about military-style weapons. I'd really like anyone to tell me that unless there's a case of anarchy or total war, why a civilian needs a weapon that can kill 30 people in 40 seconds. I'm not talking about machine guns. Machine guns are already illegal. The National Firearms Act of 1934 made automatic rifles illegal. Do you know how many documented killings or crimes we've had since the National Firearms Act of 1934? 2. Just 2. The law worked. Gun laws work. The complete rationale that's used, I tangented. If people want to own military-style assault weapons, then they ought to be certified and held to a higher standard. And their background check should be held to a higher standard. And there should be a waiting period, a longer waiting period that gives law enforcement time to do that background check. People are using the word common sense. But if we've lost common sense, can we just call it practicality? Can we just say that it's practical to keep people safer? That it's practical to not allow weapons that create mass killing situations easily into the hands of civilians? Can't we all just get to a point where we back up everything I've just said tonight? Can't we get to a point where we can all just agree that we'd like less people to get shot? I mean, that's what it really comes back to. That's where the conversation starts. Can't we all agree? I mean, what if it wasn't a gun? What if a mad bomber was circling the country, killing 45,000 people a year? The manhunt would be epic. Every three-letter agency in this country would be searching for the mad bomber who was killing 45,000 people a year. What if it was a defective medical product that had killed 45,000 patients in a year? There'd be big trials and big jail sentences. What if someone manufactured a drug that was killing its patients and killing 45,000 people a year? There'd be a war on that drug, wouldn't there? But it's not, it's a gun. And there's a constitutional right that shall not be infringed. Well, there's another right. Those are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if we have a right to life, all these people claiming they believe in the right to life, maybe they ought to listen to themselves and look in a mirror for a minute. Because 45,000 people a year are dying from gunfire. And the leading cause of the death of children in this country is not cancer. It's not car accidents. It's not drunk drivers. It's not COVID. It's gunfire. We're losing them to gunfire. And we have to do something. And if that means we have to jump more hoops, through more hoops, and we have to give more fingerprints, we have to answer more questions, isn't one life worth it? Just one. If you save one person's life because you had to jump through some hoops, pay some more fees, learn some more things, take some more training classes, what's human life really worth to you, Congress? Really? Do you have the stamina and the courage to really be pro-life? Because there are 45,000 deaths, not to mention the casualties on the side, the people who were wounded, maimed, forever changed by gunfire, and the people that the victims, the people that all get left behind in anguish. Well, Congress, where are you? We're waiting. And you're absent. We understand that you're pushing for a bill in an election year because no one wants to run against this. But where have you been? 3 years ago, 2 slaughters on the same night. You didn't do anything. Well, I guess now you get a second chance. It's a shame it took 2 slaughters to give you one. Pass safe storage legislation. Pass universal background checks. Pass Ethan's law that's already passed the House. All it takes is 12 brave senators from the other, from 10 brave senators from one side, and 2 senators from the side who are supposed to vote that way to figure out how to vote. 60 votes to save a life. You'd think we could get them. Thank you.